By law, the reproductive health rights of incarcerated women are not to be ignored, especially pregnant inmates, as reflected in the Nigerian Correctional Service (NCS) Act signed by President Muhammadu Buhari in August 2019, which provides improved welfare for pregnant inmates. Section 34 of the bill contains specific measures to address their special needs, which includes the provision of a crèche for the well-being of babies in custody and prenatal and antenatal health care for the mothers. In the case of Kemisola Oguniyi, who delivered at the Female Correctional Facility, Surulere, Ondo Town in Ondo State, such treatment was not accorded her. 20-year-old Kemisola Oguniyi was a senior secondary school 3 student in 2020 who had a dream of graduating with her colleagues, but that dream was abruptly cut short as she was arrested during the End SARS protest. According to Ms. Oguniyi, who was just 18 as at the time she was arrested, she was running errands for her mom when she was arrested alongside others on accusation of destruction of government properties during the protest. Ms. Oguniyi was first kept behind bars in police custody before she was incarcerated at the Female Correctional Facility, Surulere, Ondo Town in Ondo State. And that was the beginning of a much bigger worry as she later found out she was pregnant. Getting the necessary care, like regular antenatal service, was non-existent, a situation she said she would not wish her enemy. 2 years down the line, the pains and horror of her days at the Ondo Correctional Facility still linger on. Kemisola speaks on how she was handcuffed to a hospital bed and made to go through hard labor despite her condition.
Special treatment completely. Oúnjẹ tó bá ń jẹ ní bá wọn jẹ. Oúnjẹ tó bá ń bá wọn bí àti copy after 12 títí tí di after 10 to 11 na wọ́n náà ṣe dábí náà láàárọ̀ oníṣẹ́ ni mo fẹ́ sá lọ pé mo kọ́kọ́ wú mi oníṣẹ́ ni mo fẹ́ sá lọ ṣé àti fún ọmọ lẹ́gbọ̀n mi àtọ́lọ́ yẹn ń lò nímọ̀ yẹn ò ní sí ìgbà tó ẹjọ́ tún gbọ́ tí kò náà nọ́ọ̀sì yẹn wá sọ wípé tó bá ti ní bọ́sí ṣe lọ ṣe lápẹ́ díẹ̀ láwọn mo ṣe wá gbọ́ ìsàkíyèsí.
The amount of incarcerated women in Nigeria has surpassed the growth of male inmates between April 2021 and 14 November 2022. This is according to data from the Nigerian Correctional Service (NCS) as analyzed by this reporter. Data from the NCS shows that as at 19th April 2021, there were 65,224 inmates across the country, out of which 64,214 were male and 1,210 female inmates. As at 14 November 2022, the number of female inmates is 1,627, a development that indicates there is an increase of over 300 from the data from last year. While 339 have been convicted, 1,229 are awaiting trial. Despite the provisions of the law, the fates of pregnant inmates like 18-year-old Kemisola Oguniyi, even though she stayed at an all-female prison in Ondo State, one of the 3 built for women in the country, could be worse off in a mixed facility. More worrisome is inadequate advocacy for the welfare of pregnant inmates, which, according to the Special Advisor to the Governor of Ondo State on Gender, Mrs. Olamide Falana, is an issue of urgent attention.
Pregnancy is an unfortunate thing. I'm sure it's a situation that nobody will wish for ever, because pregnancy itself confers on a woman a level of vulnerability and also a level of need for care, special care. Can I imagine when such a woman is now in incarceration in a prison that is jam-packed? Because we are all aware of the level of congestion that we have in our prisons. We are all aware that in the current depression in the country, nobody is thinking of building more rooms in prisons. Rather, we are thinking of sustaining those who are out of prison so that they can actually live good quality of life. So for women who are pregnant, I know that there are policies under the Prisons Act, that could actually support their care, their protection, their security, their health need at that particular time. But of course, I know that no law can be perfect, but
While admitting that sometimes the treatment of inmates is deterred by poor responses from relevant authorities, the Controller of Correction, Nigeria Correctional Service, Ondo State Command, Okwe said the command is not aware of any ill treatment of pregnant inmates.
Pregnancy test for all our female inmates. From that place, we take it up upon ourselves. In the female facility, we have doctors, we have nurses, we have what it takes, just like a bigger society, to take care of any of our inmates, even at male custodial centers.
Findings from this report reveals that relevant authorities are not in the know of the laws that back up welfare for pregnant inmates, and not much is being done to fight their cause.
Many people are not even aware of such cases. Many people are not aware of incidents in such manner. If you don't go with maybe faith-based organizations, you don't get to hear some of these things. You don't get to know that there are actually some inmates that are pregnant and need help. Yes, so advocacy is not enough.
Before now, I don't think we're looking at, because like I said, no law can be perfect, and of course there are laws and guidelines and policies for every sector. What we can always do is just take the ones that are supportive, or look at the ones that we have that are not weighty enough, and see what we can do with them. So I'm sure since there's already a law in this regard, I guess maybe and the correctional centers are mostly, we have those ones, some that are federal, some that are state, and they all work together. I think the law suffices. The only thing we need to do is to ensure that this law is implemented. The only thing we need to do is to ensure that we begin to look more into the welfare of women who are pregnant and who are in prison.
No crutch. I saw an inmate with twins in a place without crutch. These were the words of the executive director of Ondo State Agency Against Gender-Based Violence, Mrs. Bonlale Afolabi, when this reporter reached out to her.
We need to also begin to look more into the welfare of the children who are giving birth to while their parents are serving term, so that these children don't just live unwholesome lives while their mothers are serving term, so that the children don't become prisoners as a result of the fact that their mothers are also prisoners.
The United Nations General Assembly, in its resolution on 22nd December 2023 entitled Human Rights in the Administration of Justice, called for increased attention to be devoted to the issue of women in prison, including the children of women in prison, with a view to identifying the key problems and ways in which they could be addressed.
The Nigeria Correctional Service and maybe NGOs who are in the criminal justice sector, to see to it that there's a bit more sensitization in terms of stigmatizing pregnant women who are inmates. However, not until this is done, and then we pick up one of them as a scapegoat to address the menace, we may not be able to actually nip it in the bud the way we want it. So we still need the pregnant inmates to give this report, either while they are there, during visits. People come there to visit for welfare packages and all that, either while they are there, or when they are out. As soon as they are out, if they make some of these reports, then people can take them up.
voted, how much votes do we have for correctional centers? How many of these centers have enough votes for them to be able to actually afford antenatal care, and also afford to have crèche, and also afford to have caregivers for children of inmates? And that is why it's important for us to also look at some of these small things that we may feel as inconsequential. We need to begin to look at how do we ensure that we have enough funding, for correctional homes. How do we ensure that we have enough funding for correctional centers, enough funding for special needs of particular people who are in such centers? How do we ensure that they don't just have children and their health becomes challenged based on that? So I think it's important for us to look more closely at this. Beyond the president signing into law in 2019, there's a need for the president and for the nation to actually fund this and vote and
For Kemisola Ogunniyi, who has had to pass through the needle, our hope is for the 36 female inmates who are currently at the Ondo State Correctional Center and others across the country to get the needed help when issues like this arise. Juliet Buna, OSRC News. This story is published with the support of the African Women in Media.